episode. I'm Paula Williams.
John Williams here.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you folks in the aviation and aerospace industries sell more of your products and services.
Right. We got actually a really cool question from a customer about, how do I position my airport as a spaceport? And
well, they can't really change the position. But I mean, we can do a lot, but we can't do that.
Right. Okay. Well, as a marketing person, when I talk about positioning, I'm talking about something different than what you were thinking of as geographical.
I'm just saying, you didn't define.
Okay. That's cool. And that's fair. But we're talking about...
it's fair, but...
metaphorically positioning your airport to become a spaceport.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So this is a lot like last week's episode when we started talking about getting involved with the aerospace industry. You're working with very large entities, you're working with possibly government entities. There's a lot to this that we couldn't possibly cover in a podcast.
No. So we have to, by definition on this time around, be very high level. And if you want or need to dive down into any of this stuff, give us a call and point us in the direction you need to go down the rabbit hole in, and we'll lead or follow you down there.
We'll start going down rabbit holes. Needless to say, this is more than 30,000 feet. This is actually
60 or above, probably.
There we go. Right. So, but the steps are a great place to start, and starting with a high level is a great way to begin a strategy. So, thing number one is you want to be ready to prove that you can do the job. There are some specific capabilities and requirements for spaceports, depending on who you want to work with and what their requirements are, and so on. Next thing you want to do is, from a marketing perspective, create a top 10 list of people you want to work with. Mm-hmm. In this case, the top 10 list is done for you for the most part, but we'll talk about that in a minute. You want to find the right decision makers. You want to create an approach plan.
Yep.
Create a holding pattern. This sounds an awful lot like things that people who fly airplanes would be very familiar with. Mm-hmm. And be prepared to wait.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's start with spaceports in the United States already. I had no idea there were so many. And this was actually 2019 was the latest map that I found that's worth looking at. I'm sure there's more now.
Well, see, I've been to several of those.
Mm-hmm. We've been to the Mojave Air and Spaceport. Very cool. Colorado Air and Spaceport. We've been there.
SpaceX launch site
right.
in Houston.
Right. And Tyler is at the Spaceport America, right?
Yep.
Tyler Hall. Oklahoma Spaceport.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know about that one?
Yep.
Okay.
They're developing it.
Right.
I don't believe it's ready yet.
Okay. The SpaceX launch site from Boca Chica, of course, they do fantastic Instagram videos. If you ever want to see a really cool Instagram and YouTube, they do a really good job of showing those. And, they are showing up for days and weeks after every launch because they're so fun to watch. And then, of course, there's the Space Coast in Florida, where a lot of our clients live. Also very fun.
The Space Coast?
Space Coast is what they call the west coast of Florida, or the east coast of Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Catherine Creedy lives there. She's a aerospace writer. So, of course, she gets to see all the launches and get all the press passes to all the fun events.
All of the launches that happen there.
That's true. Get to see all the launches from there. I'm sure they all feel them, and so on. So, anyway, there are quite a few in the United States. I'm sure there will be more as time goes on and as more companies get involved in space.
Possible.
Operations. So, first of all, I did not know this, but the FAA issues a spaceport license. And there are specific requirements for the license. You can go on the FAA website, search for Spaceport, and it will take you to this page. It'll open up into a horrendously long Excel spreadsheet of things that you have to do. It's a checklist in order to...
and I'd be willing to bet that it does not stable. It will keep growing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. That's why we're not going to reprint it. We're just going to point you to it so that you can get there and get the latest and greatest copy. So that's thing number one. You can get a Spaceport license
To launch.
and they also have a reentry site operator license. I presume most of these organizations have both.
I
Maybe
would
not.
doubt it.
That's true.
Because SpaceX is the first one to do reentry and land.
That's true. So probably a lot of them have the launch and not many have the reentry.
So far.
Cool. Okay, so we talked about a top 10 list. These are the top 10 space launch companies in America. There's SpaceX, there's Leo Labs, there's GHGSat. I didn't know about that one. Orbital Insight, Slingshot Aerospace, Orbital Sciences Corporation, Sierra Nevada Space Systems, Blue Origin, of course, Virgin Atlantic, and Bigelow Aerospace.
I'm not sure that there's any particular rhyme or reason to this list. So I wouldn't. Everybody sort of thinks SpaceX is number one. That's fine, but Slingshot is new.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't done it yet, even to prove it.
Okay.
So.
And we know Blue Origin and Virgin Atlantic have. So.
Sierra Nevada's been around a long time, but they were just got into space in the last 5, maybe 10 years.
Right, exactly. So in any event, there are not very many companies.
Yeah, this is it, actually, in the U.S., I believe, as of, 2020?
2022.
2022.
Yeah. There may be more, but I think this list was dated 2022, and it's about as legitimate as the internet. So there may be others, and of course, by the time this you hear this recording, it'll probably be different. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's a good place to start your research into who do you want to work with.
Yes.
And, how do you get them? How do you become more attractive to any of them, given their wants, needs, desires, plans, and so on?
Exactly.
Okay. So, how do you get an in? How do you get a foot in the door? How do you, they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. So how do you get to know the right people at these organizations?
Well, I think you have the key to that. Don't ask me.
Aviation Sales Foundations course, we talk about prospecting, and we talk about an approach process. So we use LinkedIn and or Lead Feeder for this. And we're going to dive into LinkedIn. We'll go on a short field trip and do some research on one of these companies.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say I decided that I want to do business with SpaceX.
Okay.
And I don't know anybody at SpaceX. I know Elon Musk run the place, or used to run the place. Exactly. And we're not exactly best pals. So now what do I do? Okay. So using LinkedIn is actually a pretty good way of going about building your top 10 list. In this case, we probably already have it. But there's a list of companies that we want to do business with. We can figure out who we know at this company or who is connected to us at this company. So the first thing I'm going to do is follow the company, and then I'm going to view their page. Okay. So there are 9,000 employees at SpaceX.
That are on LinkedIn.
Exactly. So that's a pretty good place to start. Let's see who they are. All right. And I am not connected to probably any of them, but what I can do is I can filter it to see, am my second degrees connected with any of these people? And lo and behold, I actually am. I'm actually surprised. 131 people are second degree connections. That means that somebody that I know knows them, or somebody that I am connected to on LinkedIn is connected to them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what I can do is I can look for people. First thing I'm going to do is narrow this down further to the people that are the most likely to be interested in the product or service that I have, because not everybody at SpaceX cares about what I do. So what I do is I sell marketing services. So I'm going to look up marketing. Okay. So these are marketing connections at SpaceX that are 1 or 2
sure?
degrees. Yes. SpaceX is still up here in my filter, so that's how I can tell.
Okay.
I can narrow it down even further to locations and say I want to look only at people in California or only at people in Los Angeles area. So let's say we're planning a trip to Los Angeles and we want to find people like that. So Masa Nishizaki, and I may be mispronouncing that, is a sourcing manager at SpaceX. So that would probably be a really good person to know.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is find out who am I connected to that knows Masa. And so, one way that I could go about this is if there's somebody here that I know really well. So Alex Kurtz, I might want to go through him and say, hey, Alex, I would really like to meet Masa. Can you provide an introduction? And this would be for people that maybe I've done business with directly or something along those lines. Then I would be able to use that method. Let's say that there's nobody that we have as mutual connections or whatever, or nobody that I'm close enough to that I'm willing to do that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit connect next to Masa, and I'm just going to and I'm just going to say aviation is a small world, or aerospace is a small world in this case. I thought we should connect. So super low key, no stress, no sales, no nothing, right? So it was pending until either accepts or
Rejects
my invitation. So then what I'm going to do, especially once Masa accepts my invitation, then I will see posts from Masa. Right now, all I can see is they're helping build the team. They're looking for a metallurgical engineer. So if I know somebody for this, then I might actually even reply to this and tag the person that I know and say, hey, Masa's looking for a metallurgical engineer. You should apply, something along those lines, so that they start seeing my name in their feed. If not, I can just simply like it and say, sounds like an exciting team to work for or something along those lines.
How about work with?
Work with, yes. Nobody works for anybody these days. We all work with each other. So, I don't have to do anything that is embarrassing or detailed or anything else. I just want my name to start showing up in Masa's life in a good way, right? And in a non-salesy way.
Right.
Another thing that I can do is now on my own profile, I want to make sure that I am including some information that this person is going to be interested in. So we wrote an article just recently about, or did a podcast episode about finding great people. So since I know this is something that Masa is interested in doing, I'm going to go back to my own profile and I'm going to make sure that I am referring to that. And I will put in something about, since I know that this is something that Masa is concerned with, I can go find something that I've already written and put it in there. So when was that? That was not too long ago. So, if you're having trouble finding great people, that may be something that Masa would be interested in. So I want to make sure that when this person looks at my profile, there is something recent that is relevant to him or her when he looks at my profile. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Because the first thing he's going to do when he opens my invitation is say, who the heck is this? Right. And then he's going to go to my profile and say, oh, she works in aerospace and she has an article on how to find and hire great people. That's interesting. That's what I was just posting about. How would she know that? So, what this does is it sets me up as a helpful resource for Masa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to want to find more than one person at SpaceX because, there's hundreds of them that would be involved in that decision. So I'm going to want to do this as much as I possibly can. And then I'm going to make it part of my weekly pattern to go back to Massa's profile and comment on his posts, in an unstalking sort of way, right?
Assuming.
Right. I'm not going to try and sell him anything. I am not going to do anything that is pushy or embarrassing or anything else. I'm just going to be as helpful as I can to that person, unless and until he contacts me, or maybe I have an opportunity at some point in the future where I have a white paper or something like that I'm pretty sure is going to be a good fit for what he needs or what he is doing at the moment, because by now I know him pretty well after weeks of doing this, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Questions?
No, well done.
Thank you. Wow. And you don't even like social media. Cool. So that's how I build a network in an organization that we talked about finding your top 10.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about building your network within that top 10. And we talked about building relationships with people in that top 10. And that's how you do those three things using LinkedIn as the tool, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then I can also extend that into, I need to take it offline sooner or later. After I've been talking with Masa for weeks or months, then I will say, hey, are you going to the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs? And if you are, let's grab a cup of coffee. So then by that time, it won't be creepy because we've been going back and forth for a while, know?
Right.
And he knows I'm a real person and he knows other people know me and, all of those things. So cool. All right. Back to the slides.
Exactly.
Cool. And we're back. So now that we know how to find these companies and how to find the individuals in these companies who are the most likely to be the ones who would be making a decision about our product or service, we create an approach plan. And of course, everybody's familiar with approach plans, right?
Yeah, this is an approach plate for a particular airport in the Orlando area, but that is not of consequence. But the idea is you have to plan how you're going to approach aerospace companies that you don't have a relationship with. Right.
So you don't just make contact with these people and start trying to sell them whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. These are large organizations. They make decisions as a group, typically, so you're going to need more than one person involved in the decision. You're going to have to drip information to them over a long period of time. And even if you know a lot about the company, you don't know specifically what they're looking for or what they're going to ask you for. So that's a relationship process that takes time. So you need to get the Zig Ziglar out of your head and think more Bill Caskey, right? Think more business to business sales and think more relationship building and long-term, long cycle marketing, right?
Yeah, if you have a relationship and you maintain that, as you develop new products, you may develop one they need even if you haven't sold them anything.
Right. And the other thing is, you develop relationships with individuals, not necessarily with companies. So these companies are pretty volatile. People are coming and going from them all the time. A person may leave one company and end up at another, and they didn't have an opportunity for you before, but now they do.
Right.
So, you want to cultivate those relationships regardless of what company they're at. And then by meeting people, you will meet more people as you go through that. And a great time and place to do that is at events. There's no substitute for rubbing elbows, drinking coffee, shaking hands, having dinner, whatever it is, going to networking parties and other things, and really getting to know people.
If you start, after you view this, cultivating people on LinkedIn, you should have enough time so that you can actually, they should look forward to meeting you in either the April date here or the November date. And these are just two we picked at random. There are many, many, many symposiums and conventions for space and aerospace.
Yeah, and you do want to check the attendee list, make sure they're going to be there.
Right.
My guess is that they probably will be at one or more of the events. So yeah, it's a small world. You'll be meeting the same people over and over again, I'm sure. So that's cool.
And I don't know if that 367 days to go is accurate based on when you took the snapshot. But
Right? Yeah. Well, that was November 12th.
Okay, so it's close.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So what do you do after you meet people? You know, you meet someone, you shake their hand. You don't want to sell them yet because obviously you don't really know them all that well. What happens next?
Yeah, don't sell. Don't even soft sell.
Right. So what we do instead is we put them in what we call a marketing holding pattern, where you are providing information in a low-key sort of a way. You could ask them if they'd like a white paper that your company has put together on a particular topic, especially if it's something that you know that they're doing work in. You can connect with them on any social media, you know, is usually fairly kosher as long as you've met them personally and, you know, have made the effort to have a conversation.
Well, after you've connected with them and hopefully you can low-key discussion to get started and then just listen
Yes.
for topics that they're concerned about. And if you happen to have some information, you can say, well, I wrote this about that. Would you be interested in seeing a different take?
Yeah. The first conversations with any new contact, be they in aerospace or anywhere else, is always questions, you know, more questions than listening than presenting any particular data or shoving anything in under their nose or anything else. You know, you want to get to know them. You want to ask them about their job. You want to ask them about their frustrations. You want to find out about what they do because it's cool, right? Nobody's in aerospace because of any other reason than they think it's fascinating, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So get them talking about what they do for a living. Get them talking about what brought them to this profession. Get them talking about how they got to this place and, you know, how they arrived at a conclusion and you know, asking questions as a comment on their LinkedIn posts, you know, that's brilliant. How did you get there? You know, I mean, that's really cool. And that gets them talking and that gets them started. Or if it's a phone conversation, same thing, right? Okay. All right. So we have talked about a number of things. Be ready to prove that you can do the job. Create your top 10 list, which we did for you, right? For the most part. If you want to do more than 10, that's fine. Less than 10, that's fine. 10 is a great number for any particular salesperson to manage good relationships with. You don't want to have hundreds, and you don't want to have one. So 10 is a good number. You want to find the decision makers at those organizations and get to know as many of them as you possibly can. You want to create an approach plan for each of them. You know, be that through the phone, an event, LinkedIn, whatever mechanism you want to do for that initial approach, and then create a holding pattern and be prepared to wait.
Yep.
Because they will need you eventually. You know, if you have a product or service that they use, they will probably need you eventually, but they probably won't need you today. Obviously, they're doing without you right now.
Right. So you need to be top of mind when they actually do need you.
Right. So be prepared. Maybe I should have said be prepared and wait.
Right.
So if they call you tomorrow and say, hey, I need 100 blanks, you know, you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
But if it is 8 months before they call you, you need to be prepared for that also. Okay. Great. So I think that is pretty much covers the topic.
Yep,
What do you
I'd
think?
say.
Okay. And of course, this is super high level. Every situation is different and every company is different. So if you want to get into the details, we'd be happy to do a consultation.
Give us a call,
right?
and we can take a deep dive together.
Exactly. Have a great week.